Emma didn't mean to see him again so soon. After that night by the river, she told herself she would create distance, that she needed time to sort through the flood of emotions Daniel's presence had unleashed. And yet, 3 days later, she found herself walking into the same cafe where it had all begun. It wasn't deliberate, at least that's what she told herself. The truth was murkier. She could have gone to a dozen other cafes, but something in her steps had led her here, as though part of her body remembered even when her mind resisted. Daniel was there. Of course he was. Sitting at a corner table with a notebook and sketches spread before him, he looked absorbed, his brow furrowed in thought. For a brief moment Emma considered leaving before he saw her. But then he looked up, and their eyes met, and leaving was no longer possible. He gestured quietly toward the chair across from him. She hesitated, then sat, her coat still wrapped around her like armor. "You're becoming a regular here," he said softly, a faint trace of humor in his voice. "Don't flatter yourself," she shot back, though without venom. "It's the coffee." Daniel smiled faintly, and for a moment it felt almost like the old days, banter, unspoken warmth, the comfort of being seen. But Emma pulled herself back, reminding herself not to get lost. "What are you working on?" she asked, nodding toward his sketches. "An old building near the square," he explained. "They want to turn it into apartments. I'm trying to find a balance, keeping the history alive, but making it livable for people now." Emma studied the lines on the paper. She wasn't an architect, but she recognized his touch, precise yet alive, not just drawings but expressions of something deeper. "You always said buildings should tell stories," she murmured, almost to herself. Daniel looked at her, his expression unreadable. "And you always said words should build homes." The memory of that conversation rushed back. Her insisting that writing could be as permanent as stone, him laughing and saying walls didn't crumble when readers got bored. They had argued for hours, but beneath it was admiration, even love. Emma cleared her throat. "Do you ever think maybe we were too young to know what we wanted?" Daniel leaned back, considering. "Maybe. But I don't think we were wrong about what mattered." His answer unsettled her. It was easier to believe that their past was just a foolish mistake, that their younger selves had been naive dreamers. But Daniel spoke as though their love had been real, valid, worth remembering. And Emma wasn't ready to admit that aloud. They fell into silence. The kind of silence that used to be easy between them, but now carried weight. Emma stared at the people moving outside the window, each stranger rushing towards some destination. She wondered what they would think if they knew two people inside were sitting with years of unspoken history between them. Finally, Daniel spoke. "Emma, I don't expect anything. Not forgiveness, not even friendship. But I don't want to keep pretending you don't exist. You're here. I'm here. Maybe that's enough for now." Emma's throat tightened. She wanted to argue, to tell him he didn't understand how deep the wounds still were. But instead she said, quietly, "Maybe." Over the next weeks, their encounters became almost a rhythm. Sometimes deliberate, sometimes by chance, at the cafe, by the river, once even in the bookstore where Emma had spent half her adolescence. Each meeting was tentative, cautious, like testing the ice on a frozen lake. They spoke in fragments. About work, about books, about the city. They avoided the past at first, circling around it like a dangerous animal. But the more time they spent together, the more cracks appeared in their restraint. One evening, as they walked through the park, Daniel broke the silence. "Do you remember that summer when we tried to fix the abandoned house by the hill?" Emma laughed despite herself. "Fix? You mean when you convinced me we could rebuild a roof with 2 hammers and no nails?" "We had nails," Daniel protested. "We just didn't have enough. You nearly fell through the ceiling. But you caught me." The laughter faded into quiet, and Emma felt the shift. She had caught him, not just then, but so many times. And he had caught her, too. They had been each other's anchors in ways neither of them had fully understood until it was gone. Emma slowed her steps. "Why are you bringing this up?" Daniel looked at her, his gaze steady. "Because I don't want our story to only be about how it ended." Her chest tightened. She wanted to say their story was about the ending, about the betrayal that had burned through everything. But the memories of laughter, of tenderness, of dreams, they refused to be erased. One night, the silence between them grew heavier than usual. They were sitting in his apartment, surrounded by sketches and books, the city humming faintly outside. Emma had come there reluctantly, telling herself it was only to see his work. But now she was on his couch, a cup of tea in her hands, feeling the ghosts pressing closer. Daniel broke the stillness. "Emma, do you want to know the truth about that night? The one before you left?" Her heart stuttered. "No," she whispered. "I already know." "You think you do," he said. "But you don't." Emma stood abruptly, the tea nearly spilling. Don't rewrite the past. Don't pretend there's an explanation that will fix everything." Daniel rose too, his voice firmer now. "I'm not trying to fix it. I'm trying to tell you what I couldn't then. You left before I could. I left because you made me feel like I didn't matter," she snapped, her voice cracking. "Because you chose silence over me. Because you let me walk away." The words hung between them, raw and jagged. Emma's chest heaved, tears threatening but not falling. Daniel's voice dropped, low and heavy. "I didn't stop you because I thought it was what you wanted. I thought letting you go was the only way to keep you from hating me more." The room was unbearably quiet. Emma felt the truth press against her, too heavy to carry, too dangerous to accept. She wanted to scream, to cry, to run, but she did none of those. She simply sank back onto the couch, her hands trembling. Daniel sat beside her, careful not to touch. "We don't have to decide anything now. But we can't keep living in the shadows of what we never said." Emma closed her eyes. The silence stretched, but this time it wasn't empty. It was filled with every unsaid word, every broken promise, every fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, something still remained. In the days that followed, Emma found herself replaying the conversation in her head. His words, her anger, the silence afterward. It all lingered, refusing to fade. She hated that part of her wanted to believe him, that part of her longed to rewrite the ending of their story. She wrote furiously in her notebook, trying to exorcise the feelings onto paper. But the words betrayed her, turning into questions she couldn't answer. What if he's right? What if I never really let him go? And every time she saw him again, those questions grew louder. Between words and silence, they hovered. Not together, not apart. Suspended in the fragile space where past and present collided, where love and pain coexisted. And Emma knew, sooner or later, something would have to break.